Hi everyone, welcome back and welcome if you're new. I'm going to do something a little bit out of the ordinary for me today. Normally my content, as you already know if you've been here, seen me before, is health and beauty and that sort of thing. But last year around this time I did a houseplant tour video. It was chronicling my journey to turn my black thumb into a green thumb, and it was really popular. You guys really liked it. So I figured I'd do another one this year. And this is just to show you what is new, what's old, and what's really been growing now that we've come to the end of another growing season. But if you're not interested in that, that's fine. Next week I'll be back with my regular content. So I'm gonna shut up now and we can just get on with it. Get on with it. I want to start today down here in the laundry room with this 12-year-old Pothos. It was exactly 1 year ago today that I noticed that a lot of the vines on it were starting to turn to wood. So I chopped it up and propagated it. I took everything off except for one leaf. I then put it outside and forgot about it for a week, and came back and noticed there were 2 leaves on it. So I watered it. Suddenly there were 5 leaves. So I took it out of its pot, cut the root ball in half, literally right down the middle like this, and got rid of everything that looked dead or looked like wood. For example, this sort of thing. Now, as you see, I left this and we've got lots of growth coming out of this, these so-called woody vines. But yeah, you can see, let's look in here. Here's another one that's like wood. There's lots of wood going on in there, but it still grew. I repotted it. I repotted the half of the root ball that was left and waited. And here we have it a year later. It lives here in the laundry room where it gets bright indirect light. And as you can see, the leaves are big. It's healthy. And it's growing like mad. And you'll see all of the plants that I propagated from it throughout the tour. This is an Anthurium andreatum, also known as a flamingo flower. Haven't had this very long, and I was attracted to it because of the beautiful color of the blooms, although this is actually a leaf. It's called a bract. And this spadix is where the flowers are. But the color on this was just, this one's on its way out. But these plants are really popular and they're very cheap. And unfortunately, this one, I haven't had it very long, and it looks like it's got leaf blight, a leaf bacteria. I've been treating it. I've cut off some leaves that were affected, but what is most disturbing, like here's another little bit, is that this brand new leaf just came in yesterday, and it's also showing signs of the bacterial disease. So I treated this leaf too. I may end up having to cut it off, but if it is, this plant is not long for this world, and there's not really too much you can do about it except toss it. But yeah, it has these big heart-shaped leaves. This is a Pothos cutting from the big plant. This one has just gone nuts. It is beautiful. It's always just done really well sitting in this spot. And right next to it is my parlor palm, which is also done quite well sitting in this spot. This is a Dracaena marginata. This was given to my mother as part of an arrangement. And it takes up a lot of lateral space, as you can see, but it's doing fine. It's green leaves with, I'll come in close, red edges. I don't know if that's a separate variety or if it's just the original variety or hybrid or what, but there it is, Dracaena marginata. This is my Philodendron Imperial Red. This is a very large plant, at least it's going to be. It's getting big. It's doing pretty good. I've been around the block a few times with this plant, but it seems to be doing good right now. In fact, we have a new leaf coming in right there. This is sitting in a north-facing window, which is where it spent the summer. As you can see, you've got bright red stem, and then these inner leaves. These, what are these called? Sheaths. These bright red sheaths. The roots are also bright red on this plant. Right next to it over here, someone gave us an orchid this spring. And I know nothing about caring for orchids, but this is a Phalaenopsis. No flowers right now, but this is the second new leaf that's come in since I've had it. So I'm learning. All right, starting on this side of the room, since this is what you usually see in my videos, this is one of the Pothos cuttings. This was the first one, I think, and it's about ready to go into another pot, so I'm going to combine it with one of the others. Here's my Philodendron Micans, and this is doing quite well. As you can see, it's got deep dark green leaves, and then on the underside of the leaves, whoops, it's a burgundy color. So it's a beautiful plant, and I actually am propagating some parts of this. I cut a little bit of it off, and I'm going to add it back into this pot. This side of the room gets exposure from a western window, and so sitting next to that window is this peace lily, which is doing great. This was such a small plant when I got it last year, but it's been growing. Its leaves are getting really, really big. And since it's been so hot here this summer, it's been really hard. This plant has been really thirsty. So you can see down here, a couple of the leaves are, looking like they need some water. But for the most part, it's doing great. And up here on top, a new leaf coming in. Down here below this window is my Peperomia Optusofolia. This has a red edge on the margins of these variegated leaves. It's got a lot. It's been growing really, really well. All this is new growth right here. Here, this is new growth. And it doesn't get any direct sun. It just gets this bright indirect light from the window that is just to adjacent on its right side. Here's a leaf that got burnt last summer, but otherwise it's doing really well. Moving over to the rest of my Hoya and Peperomia, I'll give you a look here. What this is in front of the western window, and these two species of plants do really, really well. Don't give me any problems and grow, very vigorously depending on how much I fertilize them. This is Hoya Ficus. I'll bring you in close. You can see the venation on these leaves. They are beautiful. I got this as one stem, a cutting, rooted cutting, about a little over a year ago. And look at you now. It has 3 peduncles. It has flowered twice this spring and summer, and I'll bring them in close because here's 2 that are going to be flowering soon. Let's see if we can, there we go. Yeah, these 2 are going to be flowering again, so it'll be the 3rd time it's flowered this growing season. This is probably my favorite plant. Never any issues. I fertilize it every couple of weeks and water it when these leaves, which have a sort of a stiff feeling about them, when they start to get soft, then I know it's thirsty. And that is true of all of these plants. It's very easy to know when it's time to water them because of that. The leaves will tell you. Hoya Fungii. This plant started at 1, 2, 3, 4 leaves. And I got this last October, and it did absolutely nothing with those 4 leaves, nothing, until the last week of July, when I noticed a tiny little green growth spurt. The following day, there were 2 more tiny green growth spurts, and within a week, 3 leaves. These 1, 2, 3. So again, bring you in here. The venation is beautiful. Oh, here, you can really see it on this one. And these leaves will get big. So I'm really excited now that it's finally growing. I guess it was putting on its, working on its root system, because this was also a rooted cutting when I got it. Back here, let's see, should I pull down the shades a bit? Maybe this light is too distracting. Let's do that. This is Peperomia Hope. This is actually a vining peperomia. I'm going to pick it up here a little bit and move it over. So yeah, there we have vines that are starting to come out. This was a teeny tiny little 2-incher when I got it last year, summer of last year, and as you can see, not anymore. Hoya Carnosa, same thing. This I got last spring, a year ago last spring, so about a year and 3 or 4 months. And it's vining all over the place. Here you can see it has put out 3 peduncles this season, finally, and it has bloomed twice. And I'm going to show you, let me just move over here. Again, the leaves normally are pretty stiff, and then when they get thirsty, they get very, very soft. Love this vine right here, although this is wrapping around. Love that. Love a little bit of variegation. But then I'm going to follow this vine all the way over to here, because there we go. It's flowering. Look at that. They're beautiful little blossoms, and they smell faintly of chocolate. And of the Hoyas that I have, these blooms last the longest. This will last maybe 2 weeks before they finally close up and die. Peperomia over here, this is Fairy Ray. You can see it has an upright growth habit and these very sword-like little leaves. Right next to it is Peperomia axillaris, and this has more what you would call sort of a hatchet shape to the leaves. Beautiful. Here, let's pull you out of there. There we go. I featured this not too long ago. So this came in the mail a couple of months ago, and it's doing really well. It's growing. It has all kinds of new growth all over it. Right next to it, Peperomia orba Pixie Lime. And this is a lime. It's definitely lime colored. Right here, this is an inflorescence. This is the flower on the Peperomia, and they all the varieties, the flowers all look the same. They look just like that. So nothing exciting to speak of, but at least we know it's happy. It's getting plenty of light. So you can see lots of new growth right there. And again, this also kind of has an upright growth habit, but I think it will eventually sort of cascade over the side. But for now, pretty. And then last but not least on this corner is my ZZ plant. And this just does its thing. I water it. Well, it's been really hot, so I think I do it about every 3 weeks now, but normally once a month. My last Peperomia is this Ruby Cascade. As you see, that's the Cascade. Let's come down so you can get a better look at it. I'll bring it down. The top of the leaf is a bright green, and the bottom of the leaf, as you can see here, is a bright burgundy. It's got new growth starting, which we love to see, and then it just goes on and on and on, just like that. For a really long time. And that right there, those are, again, where my little finger is, inflorescence. That's how this plant flowers. That's how you always know what a peperomia is. Look at that. There's 4 of them right there. Right here, this is a baby that I propagated from my Brazil. It's not a baby anymore. It's a full-grown plant on its own. But my Philodendron Brasil, which I will show you the big mother plant. I won't take too much time on this little guy, except that it's loving this northern light. Right next to it, this is my one and only Calathea, and this is the Calathea dotty. I'm going to take this over here for a second. because there, the color, the pink color on these leaves is just gorgeous. This started its life, it was teeny tiny. I mean, this is actually an offshoot. This is new. But yeah, it had just these few teeny tiny leaves, and I put it in a terrarium and let it really work on its roots in that terrarium, and now it's been out all summer and doing really, really well. In case you're wondering, the humidity in this room today, it's 80 degrees with 62% humidity, and that's pretty good. Oops. That is pretty consistent with summers here. Oh, 65%, just like that. That's pretty consistent with summers here. These plants are known for being very finicky and demanding, but this particular one has not been at all. It's been very easygoing and has responded really well to its surroundings here. So we'll see how it makes it through the winter, but I'll probably put it back under glass again in a cloche for the winter time, just to keep it warm and moist. Up here on top, this is yet another Pothos cutting that I will spare you. I won't show you that, but what I will show you is this is the Hoya Lachinosa, and this plant has been in bloom the last 6 months. It literally started blooming early in spring and it never stopped. Like here, that's one dying, and here are 2 more coming in and more down there. This is just, again, Hoyas do really well for me. Thank you so much. And as I get rid of plants that don't do so well, I will probably just buy Hoyas and Peperomias. Maybe philodendrons too. But yeah, lots and lots of foliage on this plant. Very, very thick. It's been in the north window for the summer, but now that the sun is moving away from the western window, I'll move it over there for the winter. These blossoms smell intoxicating. It's very, very tropical, very jasmine-y, just like a hot night in a tropical jungle. And they fill up my entire room, and sometimes I'll come in here in the evening and I can smell them in the hallway coming up, you know, as I approach my room. So this is the mother Maranta plant. This winter, this plant looked awful, 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 awful. It was growing out kind of viney, and all the leaves had turned, the tips were brown. So I cut it all back, started it over this spring, and look at this. It is just gorgeous. It's even got new growth coming in here, right there, and right there. So this plant really thrives in the spring and then in summer, and then in the winter it just kind of dies off. So, but if you cut it back, it'll come right back. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I mean, it's so pretty. Such a pretty plant. 2 snake plants. These are Sansevierias, although they are now called in the Dracaena family, but ugh, what an awful name. So I'm going to continue to call them Sansevierias, but I have 2 varieties here. These are bird's nest, and this one has two offshoots, one here and one there. So at some point I will take this out of the pot, remove these so that they can become their own little plant and give this plant more room, because when I turn this, I don't know if you can see, it's starting, yeah, here we go. It's starting to bust out of the pot right there. So yeah, I need to do something about that. Low maintenance, very low maintenance, water every couple of weeks or so, depending on how hot it is, but yeah. And the last room, this Dieffenbachia has been shedding some of its summer growth. It might have struggled a little bit during the recent heat wave, but there's new growth coming in on every stem, so I might, in the springtime, cut some of these stems off, like cut them there, and then just reroot them for a smaller plant. But this is the way, it's a 2-year-old plant, and this is how they grow on these long canes, like that. Another Sansevieria here, doing great. This little Dieffenbachia is doing fine. It's another one. This one starting to lose its variegation, so I brought it out here where it could get more light. Right next to it is, shall we start at the bottom and work our way up? Philodendron Brasil. Yeah, you've seen this, and as you can tell, this little guy is growing and growing and growing. It's such a beautiful plant. It's one of my favorites, actually. Yes, I do have favorites. And this one just keeps growing and growing and growing. Here on this side of the room is my Anthurium Superbum. This is just a wild, incredibly prehistoric looking plant. It's big, puts out, it doesn't grow that fast, but it has put out 2 new leaves during the summer growing season. And last winter it fought off spider mites. So I'm going to be watching this very closely this winter, but my goodness, superb it is. Right next to it, Scindapsus pictus, exotica. Again, this is pushing, these leaves are getting really big, which is great. And it's been sitting here and just enjoying itself. This is a propagation right next to it. This is a stem that I cut off of my Aglaonema pink lady that got root rot, and I propagated this in water and then transitioned it to soil, and this is a new leaf, and that's something that the mother plant never did. So I'm very happy about that propagation. I have another one downstairs in the laundry room that I propagated in soil that I didn't think was going to make it, but it actually did. These are some other propagations I've got right here and just above them. Ah, Philodendron lemon lime. Yeah. Those leaves. Okay, right below it down here is the Philodendron sellum. It has another name. Its name has been reclassified and changed, but I'm calling it a sellum because that's how you're going to see it mostly. And all of these, this is all new growth down in here that came this growing season, these little leaves. So, and as you can see, it's growing towards the light that it's getting from this eastern window. And right here, string of pearls. There you are. And I repotted this, and it's been growing. It just never stops. And the pearls are starting to get a little bit bigger, which is what I always hoped. But yeah, it just keeps going and going and going. Okay, Peperomia Optusofolia. Let's pull this way so you can use the light. Not much to say, except these are the inflorescences, and I mean there's a ton of them on this plant. Lost most of its variegation, but it's still pretty, and it's thriving. It's huge. Okay, here we have my Crasula string of buttons, and trying to work with this light, with the light here. There we go. This, I have propagated, I broke off a branch right here. There we go. And you can see what happens. New growth is coming out right here. And then off the top here where these were broken off. And here's one of the stems, and it's propagated and it's got new growth coming in. And then down on the bottom, yeah, those are also the stems that broke off, and I just stuck them back in the soil, and now they're growing. Last but not least, enjoying the midday sun, is my Frizzled Sizzle. This plant, it's getting later in the season, and this plant all of this will die off. It will turn brown and die off, like you can kind of see happening here. And it will go back all the way to the ground, to nothing, and then it will grow back in again in the spring. And that's going to do it. So thank you so much for watching today, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. and subscribe so you won't miss my next one. And until I see you in that next video, I'm wishing you a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Take good care of yourselves, and I will talk to you again very, very soon. Bye!